The 49ers are preparing to stack another win against a team that, is going through some injuries themselves, the Houston Texans. Me and KP are going to talk about all the key matchups in this game that may swing the outcome on today's 49K Pod.
You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
I don't know why I was muted, but what I meant to say was, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, October 24th. We're heading into week 8. Sorry I didn't do a show yesterday. My work was rude enough to schedule meetings all day. I mean, so rude of them. But today we're doing our preview show, Faithful Forecast with KP. What's going on, KP?
Not much. It is Friday.
It is.
It sounds like you're glad that it's Friday too.
I sure am. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's all good over here. How's life?
It's going. It's going. and I'm going through it. So that's doing the best we can. Joel says he's going to the game. So shout out to Joel. It looks like there's going to be a lot of 49er fans out there in Houston, as there usually is for these road games. So. Good stuff. Now, we don't have Desi here today, but we will go through the 49ers injuries for the week. So Brock Purdy continues to be out. We're going to see Mac Jones as a quarterback once again. Ricky Pearsall is going to miss another week as well. Jake Brendel, who exited last week's game, he's going to be out. Yetra Gross-Matos missing another week, and Bryce Huff with a hamstring injury as well is going to miss at least the next 2 weeks. As far as the players who are questionable, we got linebacker Luke Gifford, Diamador Lenore with a quad injury, and Spencer Burford with a knee injury. Now, KP, I do kind of want to ask you about the Brendel thing. So we did see Matt Hennessy look pretty good in spot duty last week, and now he's going to get to start this game, finish it out. So what did you see from Matt Hennessy that would have you be encouraged about him starting over Brendel?
So I would be leery of any first-time performances like this. That's what's kind of scary for me, just because I remember watching Connor Colby.
Exactly. I said the same thing.
And it was like, oh, wow, is this like he almost looks better than Ben Bartch? And that was, before teams had film on him. But I think, not to pour like, not just to be that guy, but based on what we've seen, I feel like at some point, right, Jake Brendel would have gotten replaced if Matt Hennessy was significantly better than him, or if he was noticeably better than him. I thought Hennessy was fine. Like there was nothing. It's not like he stood out in a bad way, but I also think this is a much tougher matchup. And then again, when teams have film on you, they'll find a way to get over on you. Hennessy was in the rotation, or at least started for the Falcons when he did play with Atlanta. But again, he also lost his spot. So it's tough to look at however many plays it was and think, you know what, we can extrapolate that. And now he's all of a sudden better than Brendel. Yes, they did well against the Falcons, but I just don't think the Falcons were a tough matchup for them. And I think it's going to be a much different story this week. I at the same time, I'm also very high on Brendel. I think he's much better than what public perception has him. Just basically any metric, he's an above average center. I know last offseason, a lot of teams wanted Drew Dalman from the Falcons, and Brendel actually has a lower blown block rate than Dalman. So there's obviously for the contract, that makes a difference too. So I think they're going to miss Brendel is a long way of saying that.
I do think that, like, I was also a little hesitant to crown Matt Hennessy as like a guy that not given the job back kind of thing because of the Connor Colby. That was only a few weeks ago. Like I remember that same feeling we had of thinking Connor Colby was going to be, the next good offensive lineman on this team. and that obviously didn't happen. So I guess we'll see what happens with Matt Hennessy this week. But I agree, he does have a tougher matchup. So we'll see where that stands. But hopefully he holds up well enough that, this isn't something that's going to impact the 49ers all that much. Now, the other question I guess I had, it seems like Diamador Lenore is questionable, and I hope that means he's going to play in this game. But, we'll get to that. The wide receivers for the Texans are going to be down a couple guys as well. So that can help in that case. As far as, Bryce Huff being out, and not just this week, but probably most likely next week as well, right? What's your concern level on the 49ers pass rush? I feel like last week's game for Huff was like the best one he's had since being a Niner, and they really needed that from him without Bosa, and now you take Huff out of the equation. What do you have, right? So how do the 49ers muster up some pressure in this game without Huff?
Yeah, I think this is going to be another one where, like, you really feel the loss of a pass rush. You really feel CJ Stroud's probably going to have all day to throw it. So Bryce Huff, I think he played his best game of the season last week. He was all over the place. I feel like that was the first time where he had a true mismatch and took advantage of it. I know, obviously they have Nick Bosa, but it doesn't feel like the 49ers have been able to do that all season. So now you take that player out. There's already no Nick Bosa. Gross Matos was an interior rush. So I think this is going to be the first true week where they feel, dang, like do we really need to make a move? So not having Huff is pretty big. You're relying on a bunch of rookies now. Sam O, who was basically an undrafted free agent in 2024 or a few years ago, I think. So it's going to be tough sledding, no doubt. You're going to have to – you can only do it with smoke and mirrors for so much, for so long. I assume Robert Saleh is going to get even more aggressive, maybe, blitz those linebackers. That's what he did a little bit last week with D. Winters and Tatum Bethune. So we'll see. Again, you mentioned the Texans wide receivers. That might help offset that just so they can play coverage. Yeah,
and before we went live, like I did mention this to KP, like we haven't gotten the official game report out of the Texans yet. So I think the only designations we can say for sure is Nico Collins and Christian Kirk are going to be out. From there, don't really know who's going to be in or out from the Texans side, but we know those for sure.
Schultz is limited, which is kind of a big deal. Like he was limited 2 days in a row. I think he's going to be questionable, but if he doesn't play, that's like 55% of their receiving yards right there. So I would imagine he does, but the fact that he's questionable, hasn't practiced is something, that's for sure.
Actually, okay, no, I thought I saw the report, but nope, that was from yesterday's practice report. And you're right. Yeah, they have a few players who were limited in Thursday's practice: DeMeco Autry, Derek Bennett, as well as you mentioned, Dalton Schultz. So those are probably the three guys that I would assume are questionable, with Collins and Kirk being out. But again, we don't know for sure. Nothing official on that front, but that's what we're projecting. Is my mic okay? I see the comment saying my mic was going in and out.
It is, yeah. It did, but you're good now.
Okay, all right. Yeah, my mic setup had to kind of reset it earlier today. So, okay, cool. We're good. All right, so let's take a look at the Texans defense first. This is like the top defense in the league after all. So on the outside, they got Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley, and they also have Jalen Petrie, who's, safety, but plays that big nickel spot for them. Also the other safeties, Kalen Bullock and MJ Stewart, linebackers, EJ Speed, and then former 49er Azeez Al-Shaair. On the defensive line, they got some dogs: Daniel Hunter, Sheldon Rankins, DeMeco Autry, and Will Anderson Jr. So I think, I'll just jump right into it, KP. I mean, this is obviously the most cautious, I think, matchup for the 49ers, and it's a big one, right? Because it's the entire defensive unit. second in completion percentage allowed to opposing quarterbacks, under 60%. They're 15th in sack rate. To add some context to that, the 49ers have faced 4 teams that do rank higher in sack rate. The Rams, the Falcons just last week, the Bucks, and Seattle. But even still, the Texans have a really good defensive line, and as I would say, headlined by Will Anderson Jr. And they get turnovers. They're third in takeaways per game, averaging 1.7 per game. So I'd say that's pretty significant. So just KP, what are your biggest concerns with this Texans defense this week and how the 49ers can kind of combat that?
So obviously they have star players. Will Anderson, I think he's probably top 3, 4, 5 edge rushers in the NFL, and he legitimately produces like one. So where he lines up, which is over the right tackle, is probably going to be a problem for the 49ers. And I think having a shutdown cornerback just makes life so much easier, and they have that in Stingley. I also think Petrie's a stud. So you have 3 legitimately I don't want to call Petrie an all-pro player because he hasn't gotten there yet, but I view him like that. So just having 3 top-level defenders like that is going to go a long way. I also think it's important that, look who calls their play. I know he's not technically the defense coordinator, but this is still a DeMeco Ryans defense. It looks like a DeMeco Ryans defense, and that DeMeco Ryans defense is probably going to know a lot of the outs and the checks and where the 49ers want to go with the ball, what they're just every counter move they have. I'm sure he's seen it because he watched them practice. He was a quality control guy for this team. So he knows the ins and outs and how Kyle wants to think. So I think just having that kind of advantage will go a long way, and not having a game changer of a type wide receiver, right? So Stingley, he's probably going to, I don't want to say struggle, but he's going to have a more difficult task guarding a Brandon Ayuk, a Ricky Pearsall, a JSN, as opposed to a Kendrick Bourne, a Juwan Jennings, where he can just rely on his athleticism and set on a bunch of routes. So it's going to be difficult. There's no doubt to get over on this kind of defense.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, this is definitely a meeting of the minds, or battle of the minds, I guess, between Kyle Shanahan and DeMeco Ryans. They're obviously very familiar with each other from DeMeco's time in San Francisco. And so with DeMeco's defense being first in points allowed per game, allowing just 14.7 points, this is going to be really interesting to see how Kyle Shanahan, handles that. In his career as a head coach or offensive coordinator, he's 1-4 when facing the number 1 scoring offense in week 8 or later, including the playoffs. That's according to NFL Pro Stats. And this is interesting too, though, and this encapsulates where the Texans are as the state of the team currently. They're the first team in NFL history to have the best scoring defense, allowing just 14.7 points per game, and have a losing record through 7 games. So they're not balanced at all. And so with that, I do ultimately think the 49ers could have an advantage there, but it really depends on this battle between Kyle Shanahan and DeMeco, who's going to have the edge. Well, history would tell us that Shanahan has the edge, but the Texans offense being so poor, it does open up that opportunity, of course. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. We spoke a little bit about the pass rush. I mean, obviously Will Anderson and then Danielle Hunter. So from the pressure standpoint, 42% pressure rate, that's 5th in the NFL. And Hunter ranks 2nd, and Will Anderson ranks 4th in pressure rate among pass rushers. And when they do generate pressure, they're allowing a league low 33.8 completion rate, 4.9 yards per pass attempt. And that's 5th. I guess it'd be 5th lowest in the league. So even when they're not getting, on non-blitzes, they don't blitz a whole lot. And on non-blitzes, they're first in EPA, negative 0.31. We did talk about, Will Anderson. He's going to be lining up over McKivitz. Hunter's going to have Trent Williams, who since week 1 has improved quite a bit. So do you feel like, Trent being able to neutralize the other end will help the 49ers in this case?
Yeah, Will. So obviously, Danielle Hunter's serviceable. It's not like he's a bum or anything, but he's just not Will Anderson, which who is. So being able to go against a Danielle Hunter who is 30, and I think that the players who might give or who potentially will give Trent problems this year are on the younger side who still have that peak athleticism. That's not what Hunter has. So knowing that, like, hey, if I'm going to lose, it's going to be with Trent Williams against Danielle Hunter, so you can have more George Kittle, more running backs chipping Will Anderson. I know nobody wants to hear that with George Kittle, but Will Anderson leads the NFL in win percentage as a pass rusher. And he wins the NFL, or sorry, he leads by about 2.5%. So it's pretty significant where he's just winning at an insane clip, and you're not going to leave McKivitz one-on-one. They haven't done that as it is, but that just his success really makes them go. Like, they have the number 2 pass defense in DVOA. The one thing that you can do against Houston, though, is run on them a little bit. So maybe it's more of that Rams game maybe not Rams game, but last week they really ran the ball, ran, only to throw it underneath. So it could be a lot of that where McCaffrey has another, 18, 20 rushes, and they're living in 3rd and 4, or 2nd and, manageable. That way Mac doesn't have to throw the ball down the field or isn't having to complete passes in just really difficult situations. So I assume that they're going to do everything they can to take Will Anderson out of the game, and that probably goes by running the ball and, throwing as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that would be a pretty good strategy. You definitely want to help Mac Jones out any way that you can, because you know that he does struggle under pressure. Under pressure, he's 33rd. Funny number or word. 33rd in yards per completion with 8.3, 25th in yards per pass attempt, 4.5. 22nd in touchdown rate, 2.1, and 19th in sack rate with 20%. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely limits him quite a bit, and we've seen that in numerous games now that he's been, the starter. So we do also know that even with that, it's possible for the 49ers to be able to win and move the ball and score points. But I do still think it's going to be more challenging in this game where you're facing the toughest defense you've faced to date.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the good news, the one thing that is working with this matchup is, we know what the 49ers defensive coordinators are like. DeMeco doesn't really blitz. So ideally, Mac's only having to worry about that front 4. So he can thrive. And, that he's been much better when, he's not under pressure facing that blitz.
Yep, indeed. And, this graphic here from NFL Pro shows that the Texans have the advantage in all these categories: passing against play action, long passing, rushing under center, passing against no blitz, and passing against no pressure. So, again, this just highlights the challenge that's facing the 49ers this week. But with that, I think, like I said, this is the only team in NFL history that has the top ranked defense and still has the record that they do through these 7 games. And a lot of that has to do with their offense. And, it's been tough sledding for them so far. CJ Stroud obviously has regressed. They haven't gotten too much of a ground game going. I mean, they fall behind in a lot of these games as well, which isn't helping. They got rookie Woody Marks as their running back. And as we mentioned, their top 2 wide receivers are going to be out. Nico Collins is kind of he was the only thing going for them really on offense. And they were spamming targets for him. It was working out just because he's so freaking talented. So losing him in this game is huge, I think, for the Texans. I mean, you have Xavier Hutchinson, and then from there you got 2 rookies, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. I do expect they'll probably mix in some other guys. Like we might see Braxton Berrios. We might see who's the other guy?
Whew.
Yeah, it's like a quiz. Well, just somewhat. Oh, Justin Watson,
Oh
probably.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just there's an opportunity for the 49ers here to put some clamps on on these wide receivers. Now, Dalton Schultz, I think, is probably gonna get a number of targets in this game. Out of all the guys available, like he's probably the most reliable that you can depend on here. But their offensive line has been awful this year, so I think from their perspective, it's going to be about getting the ball out quick as well and try to maximize what you can out of these rookie receivers, who I did like coming out of the draft. But I mean, there's no doubt about it. You're shorthanded if you're the Texans.
Yeah, no, Nico is huge, man. He is their offense. So nobody else on that team has more than 15 receptions other than Nico and Dalton Schultz. So it's pretty much a two-team, just the way that they target, the way CJ Stroud looks. I know Christian Kirk's been banged up, but that's kind of been the story for him the last couple of weeks. So having to go from Nico as your number one to now a guy who, like, it's not as if Jaden Higgins hasn't been playing. It just doesn't seem like they have a role for him. And a bunch of people did like Jalen Noel coming out, but and I know he did have a better-ish game last week. He's still like a 5'9", 5'10" guy. And I think that messes up well with what the 49ers have, whether it's Deommodore Lenoir, who, he has a quad injury, but it seems like they were being precautionary, and he is going to play. So being able to roll with Green, being able to roll with Lenoir. I think the question is, what do the 49ers do at nickel? So Upton Stout is no longer on the injury report. Are we all just assuming that he gets the job back based on what Chase Lucas has done? Every time he's on the field, even dating back to preseason, he's made plays.
Yeah.
So it'd be tough to just kind of pull the plug on Chase Lucas after everything he's done. So, but I get that, right? Regardless if it's Lucas or Stout, you're going to feel good to lose. Like if you lose because Jalen Noel got over on like your secondary, happens, right? Like that's the game. So I would feel confident too for the 49ers to kind of hold the Texans, under 20 points for sure. So it's not a team that can really run the ball, and they can't pass protect. They throw it so quickly that they don't have to pass protect. It's a really weird game. It's a weird matchup for both teams because they are so banged up. If the 49ers did have any ounce of pass rush, I would feel great about this, but because they don't, I'm a little hesitant. But I mean, the matchups, they bode well on the outside too for the 49ers. Like I would be confident in Green, Lenoir, Stout, Lucas, whoever it is, and even the safeties lining up against whoever the Texans throw out there. It will be interesting though to see Dalton Schultz. Like, how do they guard Dalton Schultz? They had some issues with Kyle Pitts last week. Even Malik Mustafa, I know it was a back shoulder fade, but I would imagine whether it's D. Winters, Malik, Jair Brown, like somebody's going to have to step up and be a lot better guarding tight ends, because it used to be Fred Warner's job, and obviously they don't have that luxury anymore.
Yeah, indeed. And we did finally get the official game status report from the Texans. So, yes, confirmed. And Nico Collins and Christian Kirk are going to be out, as well as Elijah Huzzy, who I think is one of their corners. But I don't think he's been available for them. This looks like a IR practice window situation because he practiced in full all week and is still out. And then as far as the questionables, Jalen Smith and DeMeco Ryans, both questionable. So, yeah, as far as what that means for the 49ers defense, of course, like we see this as a favorable for the audio listeners. What we're looking at the screen now is just as far as the wide receivers that the Texans are going to have available to them, kind of what, KP was mentioning, that no one besides Nico Collins and Schultz has over 15 receptions. So Xavier Hutchinson has 13, but it does have 2 scores in those 13 catches. So, I mean, maybe that's someone they look for in those situations. Jaden Higgins, 9 receptions, 121 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Noel, 9 receptions, 99 yards and a touchdown. And he got involved late in that game last week against Seattle. So I think maybe they know that they kind of have to turn to these rookies a little bit more. And like I said, they are talented. So, if they're up for the challenge, we could see the Texans be able to move the ball with those guys, but just not at the same efficiency that she would with a Nico Collins out there. So that's the opportunity for the 49ers. Now, the next favorable one, this Texans offensive line, as I mentioned, is, as terrible as they come. 46 pressures allowed on the season. They rank 30th in pass block win rate, 30th in run block win rate as well, 29th in EPA per blitz. So to your point, KP, like if the 49ers are having a hard time rushing with just 4 guys, which maybe they do this week, even with the Texans offensive line, although I'm not sure about that. I think like the 49ers do have some guys who can get it done, just not consistently, right?
Right.
So do we expect that the 49ers Saul is going to dial up the blitz a little bit more in this game? I mean, we've already seen them blitz more than they did last year. So in this game, though, when you need some help, do you get that going a little bit more?
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more he probably doesn't have to, right? With no Nico. And even if it is a tight end, like it's not like Dalton Schultz is this guy who runs a 4-3 and will be able to just create matchup nightmares for you. He's going to be schemed open. So with that in mind, I think they just kind of sit back and play coverage. Like it would have been an ideal matchup for Mykel Williams if Huff and Bosa were on the field. That way he can kind of kick inside and overwhelm. But now they don't really have any other edge rushers to play on the outside. They just kind of swapped spots with Robert Bill and Travis Gibson. So Gibson was playing for them, but I don't know if like that's going to be the case now. So on the edge, it's pretty much just Samo and Mykel. So Mykel, instead of having to learn on the inside, he's going to have to learn on the fly on the outside on the edge. So I really don't – it's not like I don't like it for him. I think it's more favorable on the other side inside. So I think Saleh just goes down swinging with the matchups on the outside. That's how he's kind of played all season. Outside of, these last couple of weeks where he's just – I love the way he's blitzing Tatum Bethune, who's largely struggled in coverage even when he was with Florida State. So the best way to avoid like him having coverage busts is just to blitz him, and that's what he's done. And he's been a very good blitzer too. So it'll be interesting to see what Saleh does in that route. But I would imagine he plays it relatively safe to the belt just because there aren't these weapons that are going to cause you to blitz.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Mykel Williams, in his snaps on the edge this week, because I feel like, for example, if he's lining up against Ursary, like I think he can win those matchups, right?
It's the guy you drafted him to beat for sure. Like that's yes.
Exactly. So I think they might try it, and I think it'll have some success for them in this game, just given how poor this offensive line of the Texans has been. And then also, like, I liked what I saw from, Jordan Elliott last week, even from the pass rushing standpoint. Alfred Collins, I think continues to improve in that area as well. So, even on the interior, I think they have some guys who can create something, especially in this game. Like this game is a matchup that's favorable for them to have success. Even without, Bryce Huff, and if nothing else, like we just see it be neutral, and we see.
That's what I'm expecting, right? It's going to be like, it's almost like the opposite of the immovable object, that phrase. So, this is going to be an ugly game. I hope everybody acknowledges that. I hope everybody knows what they are about to tune into on Sunday morning, because we could be looking at a single-digit game heading into halftime for sure. Would be the least surprising game.
One of the most boring games of the season, potentially.
Punt.
So here's the interesting thing. Like, we feel so much better about the 49ers field goal situation. If the 49ers even just get into field goal range, which – I think Pinheiro has shown his range to be a pretty decent one, that, that could very well decide this game, just like a field goal battle between these two teams. And if it comes to that, I don't know. I kind of like the 49ers. It won't be exciting, but hey.
12-9.
I could see it. I could definitely see it. And, again, we're looking at, the matchups advantages for the 49ers defense over the Texans offense. So as far as pressure rate, the Texans offensive line does have the advantage because the 49ers defensive line is 29 in pressure rate. And then in passing versus pressure, the 49ers do have the advantage there. On quarterback scrambles, the Texans have the advantage there. But the 49ers have the advantage in defending rushes under center and passing against the blitz. So, yeah, with that, I guess I did want to touch on that one question you had earlier of, who's going to start at nickel this week. I think it's a great one. I do like what I saw from Chase Lucas this past week, and then just the way he answered that question of how he knew that ball was coming his way on the Drake London route just shows, the veteran savvy. And that was information that was available to all the players. He mentioned that was something that, Robert Saleh kind of gave to the players for them to study for the week, just tendencies. But, I think you see the veteran savvy from Chase Lucas that I think could be beneficial to the 49ers over maybe what you're getting from Upton Stout. That being said, I do still think the 49ers appreciate that Upton Stout can grow on the fly. And I think there is something that he does really good, and that is blitzing. Chase Lucas blitzes pretty well as well. But I do still think there's a way the 49ers find a way to get both of those guys on the field in different situations and maybe different matchups even, because if we expect that the Texans are going to mix different guys in the slot, between Berrios and Jalen Noel, then, maybe there's one guy they like better for a certain matchup. I don't know, but what I have seen from Saleh is that he's kind of maximizing certain guys in certain situations, and we've seen so many guys on the field from this defense so far this season.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that, but I don't know, just because. So I think it's pretty clear that Stout's the future, right? Based on contracts, based on where he was drafted, Stout has already gained valuable experience. But this has been a team forever who's relied on veterans. I know they said they wanted to get younger. And then once you see the veteran play, you see him play at a high level, how could you pull him, especially on going on the road and knowing the difference, right? You mentioned that fourth down play. Stout's biggest issue all season, honestly, his only issue, he's been very good, but the same thing always pops up where he'll get caught looking in the backfield when he's being targeted, his eyes are bad, and now he gives up a long play or just gives up a reception when he really wouldn't have if he wasn't making the play. On the counter to that would be, well, he also made a play against the Cardinals and saved the day too. So I don't know if there's a wrong answer here. So the 49ers are probably sitting in a pretty good spot, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with either, probably. And Niner Faithful here in the comments says, Kittle getting at least one touchdown on National Tight End Day. Do you feel like this is a good matchup for Kittle to kind of get going? I know, we talk about how good this defense is. We talked about the linebackers that are pretty good, but Kittle didn't have any receptions last week. We got to expect some for him this time around. So
you would think after not having a single reception, he would have like 10 receptions this week, but it's tough, man, just because the Texans aren't really like a funnel to the middle type of team. So they are number one in DVOA at defending running backs and passes against running backs. They are number two at defending tight ends and limiting just passes in that area to tight ends. So I really don't. And again, the more that I think about it, the more that I think Shanahan's going to go out of his way to not let Will Anderson beat him. How does he do that? By putting arguably his best offensive lineman, who is George Kittle, and that will go to Will Anderson. So sure, in the red zone, right, if they get down there, of course he's going to be involved. On 3rd and 5, like on those type of downs, yeah, he will probably be involved. But this is also Kyle Shanahan who likes to dial up those long developing play action passes. So if you're going to do that, you better make sure 51's blocked. And to make sure 51's blocked, you're probably going to want 85 involved. So as much as people might want, this to be Kittle's breakout game, I think we're probably a week or two away from that.
Yeah, and the other side of that too is that even Kittle himself admitted that he's not in shape right now. He missed several weeks. It's going to take him some time to get to football playing shape. So,
Which is why that game plan made even more sense last week.
yeah, I mean, it was a perfect game plan. Worked perfectly against the Falcons. You're not going to have that much success running the football this week, but it will put you in positions, as we said earlier in the show. It'll create better third down situations, manageable third down situations for Mac Jones and this offense to, try to get through. Filthy Casual asked, does Jordan Watkins get any snaps? So he was healthy last week, but he was out for that game. And instead, they had Malik Turner active. Now, if anyone paid attention to the special teams unit, coverage unit at all, you would be like, that was a great choice because Malik Turner did a hell of a job on special teams. So do you expect that to continue? I mean, I don't know, if you could change your mind about that now after seeing how much success he had, right?
Yeah, that would be kind of weird to pull the guy who just, made plays on special teams for a guy who's making his first career, appearance on the road against a defense that is going to be very stingy as it is, unless they just view Watkins as such an upgrade from what they have at receiver. So we mentioned the type of wide receivers who are probably going to need to beat the Texans. That those are not the types that are Jennings and Bourne. They are the speedier types. So in that sense, Watkins should definitely get snaps. It's a matter of how comfortable they are with his route tree, where he's going to win. But based on what we saw in the preseason, just that one slot fade, they do not have that. I thought it was going to be Demarcus Robinson. I still don't think it's over for Demarcus Robinson. I know he had the brutal drop last week, but the Robinsons and the Watkins are far more likely to have or to get over on a Texans kind of defense than the Bourne and Jennings are. So I would lean towards Watkins getting more shine. I would think he would in a game where they barely even threw the ball last week. It was really weird.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a good point. You only get so many call-ups for players that are on your practice squad. Have they run out of call-ups for?
I think he has had 3. I think the next time he would have to be promoted. Because he's played – that was his 3rd game. The only other 2 times he played was when Jennings was banged up. So, yeah, that was his 3rd.
Yeah, great call-out. I guess we'll see if they make a move in order to, keep Turner on the roster just based
on. Maybe that's why he doesn't end up playing because, he's all out of promotions. So the NFL is so weird, all these little things. That is a great great point to bring up.
We would find out Saturday, right? Tomorrow.
If he's called up, yeah.
He's called up. So if he's not, then we could probably expect Jordan Watkins gets the nod.
Yes.
And then also we're getting the question on Gifford, who is questionable with the hamstring injury. Do we maybe see Nick Martin get any snaps? He was active last week, but I don't know if he got any snaps. I could check on that really quick, but
I don't think he did. I don't know if you want to. Tatum Bethune has been very good for them in these 2 weeks. So he's not playing the same position as Tatum Bethune is. He's playing the position that D. Winters is, and he's not coming. D. Winters just doesn't come off the field. It hasn't come off the field all season. So you would need a Winters injury for Martin to play, and I don't think we're going to see that. Martin didn't play any defensive snaps last week.
10 special team snaps last week.
So he's going to live on special teams pretty much, and that's really Gifford's role as well. We would more than likely see whether it's Pinnock, Lucas, Stout. We're going to see the big nickel before we see more linebackers play. That is a big deal though for Gifford to play because he does lead the team in special team snaps. He leads the team in special teams tackles, so he does make an imprint. Just not on defense. He makes his mark on special teams. And we know how, one injury can affect everything. So if he does get downgraded to that, that'd probably be a pretty big deal for the special teams.
Well, I have one question for you before we get out of here, and it's in regards to the safeties. So, Saleh has pretty much said, we know one spot for sure. That is Malik Mustafa. But from there, it's either Jair Brown or Marquez Siegel. And they've kind of like mixed in those guys, in the meantime while they figure it out. Do you feel like anyone's pulling away in that competition at all?
I feel vindicated for a preseason prediction that I gave you. You asked me like who's going to start, and I said I would probably lean toward Malik and Jair Brown, and we were kind of seeing that. So last week they had 65 defensive snaps. Last week Jair Brown played 65 defensive snaps. I think like he just has the highest floor, right? Like he's not going to make the type of mistakes where there are busts in coverage, where there are these missed tackles. And I know he has a rap for being this missed tackler, but you have to imagine that that's not the way he was used. Like he's not supposed to be coming downhill the way Malik Mustafa is. That's not his game. So I think deep in coverage is where they really like him, and he is their true free safety. That way Mustafa can do these other things. Siegel, who's very good against the run, not as much when he's a single high safety. So I think the best safeties that complement each other, maybe even the best safety to complement Malik's strong suit is Jair Brown. So I think those are going to be the two safeties. And I think that's their best way. It's not going to be a team where, they generate many takeaways, but to avoid the big play, which is how Saleh essentially coaches, to take away that big play, that's where Jair Brown comes into play.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely some overlap with Siegel and Mustafa's best skill sets, and Siegel just not quite there yet on the coverage thing. So, and that's what the 49ers really need right now, especially with the lack of the pass rush that they have. So, yeah, I'm on board with that decision if that's where it's leaning, and I suspect that it is as well. One last piece of news that we got when Kyle Shanahan spoke with the media today is that Brandon Ayuk could have his practice window opened pretty soon. They keep saying, he's getting closer, but Kyle Shanahan did say it could be next week that his practice window opens. They're entering a week-to-week phase now where, it pretty much could happen any week from here on out that he has his practice window open. So we'll be waiting intently because, the 49ers could use a spark in the wide receiver room. And in any case, he can use the rest of this season to ramp up and get back to peak performance for the 2026 season. But that's all we have for today's show. KP, thank you so much for joining. Thanks everyone in the live chat, everyone that tuned in. Make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Check out Niners Nation for all the previews, all the content on this matchup heading into it. And audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. Peace. I realized that I didn't get a score prediction.
I was wondering if you're going to do that.
Yeah, I totally forgot. It was off my game. But yeah, I would definitely say the team that scores the highest points, it'll probably it'll be under 14, I think.
Oh, I was going to say
team wins
stupid, like 9-7 or something like
that. Yeah.
It's going to be nasty.
That's disgusting. Yeah, well, I do think the 49ers could pull this one out even with their injuries, but we'll see.
I think the Texans are going to win.
Yeah, dang, that would suck.
Yeah. So it's weird. For whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan's teams, after they win, are just asleep at the wheel the next week. Seriously, just go down.
Game 2.
Yeah, like it's not a good situation for them based on history. After they won the Cardinals, they beat the Cardinals, but it was 16-15. Like they had no business really winning that game. The next week after they beat the Rams, they went on the road in Tampa Bay. They lost. The Jacksonville's lost. So it's strange, but I don't think it's the end of the world because you drop this game, AFC game, so you're still undefeated in conference. You're still undefeated in the division, and then 2 weeks from now, you're probably going to get Ayuk back. You're probably going to get Pearsall back. So that's when you play the Rams. So you got to beat the Rams. You got to beat the Cardinals. You'll be okay.
And I just realized we are still live. I didn't press the end stream button.
Even better.
There you go. This was great analysis, though.
You're welcome.
You guys got some bonus content right here. I mean, NKP gave your score prediction 9-7, and you think the Texans win?
I mean, it's going to be something stupid like that, either 9-7. Like realistically, it'll probably be like 17-13, but I mean, it's not that many more points. So I would be shocked if both these teams got to the 20s. I just don't see that happening.
Okay, I'm gonna go 12-7. No, I'll just go with that. But all right, for the second time, goodbye, everyone. This time I'll press the end stream button. Peace.